It's my absolute joy and my honor to welcome you, Mariana Bozesan, to the Conscious Evolution Summit.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
I see you in the IEC conference just a few weeks ago, and I was so impressed about what you share, and I dare to invite you because it's not really my field where you are an expert in, but I thought I really want to have this aspect of life, finances and economy really represented in the summit because it's a very crucial and important aspect of all our lives. And to get people to know you a bit more, I will just share your introduction, Mariana, and read it for all who are joining us now. So Dr. Mariana Bozesan is the leading force in integral investing, implementing the UN SDG within planetary boundaries, and a successful serial entrepreneur. She has been elected European Female Investor of 2019, Entrepreneur of the Year in 2017, member of the Club of Rome and Fellow of the World Academy of Art and Science. She has earned an outstanding investment track record by the de-risking early stage investments using the theta model, a de-risking method she invented based on integral theory by Ken Wilber. Together with the co-presidents of the Club of Rome and 100 plus fellow investors, she launched the investment turnaround with the intention to demonstrate that financial returns are inseparably linked to positive ecological, social, cultural, and ethical effects, as well as individual self-actualization and joy. Educated at Stanford University and Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, she holds a master's study in AI and a PhD in
master's degree. It's a degree.
Master's degree. Sorry for
that. It's not a study. It's a real degree. 7 years of computer science and artificial intelligence.
Wow. Wow. And I mean, as it's not my area, but I would assume not so many females are joining you in this area, or how is it? Is it a man-driven area, or?
Yes, of course it is. Unfortunately, it is. Yeah. And I just gave another interview this morning, and I was asked the exact same question as to why aren't that many female entrepreneurs and investors, and so my answer is it's just culturally we get brainwashed as women, particularly in the Western culture. To believe that we are not good at math, and which is absolute BS. I grew up in communist Romania, and one of the wonderful party lines, in not what they did with the party line, but what was taught, is that equality. And so there are many more women studying math and sciences than I then eventually find out in Germany, which is a pity. Wow. It's just, we're just being brainwashed and we seem to believe it. So I hope you and I can change that and encourage other women to be who they are. I mean, just, you don't have to because we say so. Just follow your heart and your talents.
Yeah, and what you also address and where I really resonate is, this is a time where we need also to dare to step out of our comfort zone. I mean, really inviting you, and I'm not so an expert in it, but I said, no, I want to have you because we really need to cover all areas of life. And even though maybe some terms I'm not used to, or, but I dare to step out of my comfort zone to take the challenge and bring you also in the summit, because you might have seen that it's more, healers, spiritual teachers, therapists in this area, but also economy and the financial area is such a crucial part. And as you already mentioned, we can also kind of bring it in. And what I also sense that there a lot of transformation is starting to happen, and I would really like to share you about what you see and what you inspire to bring into our world. But first, maybe take us back in your history and why you ended up in doing what you are doing now. Which circumstances led you, or how did life orchestrate that you ended up doing what you do?
Well, how much time do we have?
Yeah, I know. I know.
Well, well, first of all, I just already alluded to my love for math and science, and so I just followed this calling. And the reason for that was in part due to my desire to get out of poverty. I grew up in very poor in communist Romania. I went to school without food, hungry very often. My teeth are damaged because of bad nutrition growing up, and my body is, still suffering from it. And so I just wanted to get out of poverty, and I was encouraged by my parents and the society around me growing up in Romania that the best way to get out of poverty is to use what you have between your two ears, the brain, and your talents to contribute to a society that then will reimburse your giving by helping you succeed. And I followed that. And I was lucky, extremely lucky and grateful for it. And I'm very grateful for it, to be surrounded by, well, first of all, to have the best parents in the world that encouraged me every step of the way, and then have the most wonderful teachers and mentors along the way who really helped me and guided me. And I would encourage anybody and everybody who wants to succeed in life to really ask people for support, for help, and do whatever they can to contribute and to participate in making their life a masterpiece, because that's why we're here. We already won the game, so there is no other thing for us to do but to fulfill that that calling for being alive today.
Mm-hmm. Wow, thank
And
you.
and of course, when my immigration occurred my mother is of German origin, so we were starving in communist Romania, and because of her German origin, we were allowed to join our relatives in Germany. And I was 16 years old. I ended up studying computer science and at the Karlsruhe Institute of Technology, at the time called Karlsruhe University. And that changed my entire life, of course. And I ended up studying computer science at a time when most people didn't know what computer science was. They all thought Informatik, which is the name of it in German, where it had something to do with journalism or something. It was a very new science. And I didn't particularly like programming in regular languages like Pascal and COBOL and Fortran. And that's why I looked for an alternative. And when I came across object-oriented programming, artificial intelligence as a new field, that was not that young. It was actually started in 1956. I knew that that was the way that I wanted to pursue. And that's what brought me eventually to Stanford University in Silicon Valley, which also helped me graduate in building expert systems. At the time, that was one area of artificial intelligence for chip design. So building highly integrated circuits. And and so that, and I was so divinely guided. I mean, I cannot find a better way to express that. And I think we are all divinely guided, but sometimes we stand in our own way and don't see the calling. So I can only encourage people to open up and to stay open. So it's being on this program is extremely gratifying for me, because as you said, I mean, you cannot succeed on the outside if you don't do the job on the inside. And so I'm deeply grateful for being invited to the International Conference on the European Conference on Integral Studies, and by you and other people's and coachings and leadership organizations, because that's the key. That's the key to success on the outside, is doing the work on the inside.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Mariana, you also did you really invented this integral investment?
Yeah,
this term? And so I guess
I did. It was actually it was in 2001. Actually, I've been a student of Tony Robbins for a long time, since in 1988. And after our first internet exit, my husband and I, we were looking for, to the next level, to grow to the next level. So we joined Tony Robbins, and we traveled with him and with a few friends around the world. And it was actually in the desert of Morocco. We had the tent village being built, and so it was in the middle of it was late at night. It was around 11:30, because Tony delivers seminars forever. And when he actually introduced the work of Ken Wilber, that was the first time that I had heard the and he introduced he used the name Ken Wilber, but he actually introduced us to the spiral dynamics, which is one single tool within the whole toolbox of integral theory. And so I got really, really interested on studying more about it, and I began reading the books. My first book was I don't recall the name just now, but was a brief history of everything or something.
Yeah.
And I started reading more and more, and then I thought, God, I really need to dig deeper. And that's when I enrolled then in studying, getting a PhD in integral psychology, which and I ended up studying integral. Actually, it was transpersonal psychology at the Institute for Transpersonal Psychology in Palo Alto, that was founded by the renegades of Harvard University after the LSD scandal. And so 6 years later, after I got my PhD, I dared contact Ken, because I didn't want to do that before, just to meet him. And I asked him, I said, hey, is anybody that you know of applying your theory in investing? And he said, no. And I said, well, here I am. I'm going to be the first. Would you be on my advisory board? And he said, of course. So that started the beginning, was the beginning of an extraordinary friendship. And Ken is really, he is my biggest supporter. He is always has opened the doors for me. He just wrote the foreword to the Integral Investing book that is now available on Amazon. And so I don't know what I did to deserve this friendship, but Ken changed my life, because one of the things that I see also within the integral community, a lot of people mention his name and use the word integral this and integral that. But if you really dig deeper, then it's disappointing to see how little time they spend really, really digging inside and understanding what Ken is all about. He is one of the most brilliant minds on the planet today. I haven't come across anybody that is more evolved than he is, and not just because of the many books. He cognitively is obviously highly developed. He has a big heart. His heart development is amazing, and so the combination between the two is a gift to humanity.
Absolutely. And I mean, I never had the privilege to meet him personally. I invited him several times, and I still do. I send invitations and I don't stop it. Because I also sense this expansion in him in so many levels. And he also was very crucial in my development and understanding. Sometimes I had parts where I would read in a book, and I would know that it lands in me, where I so much know that this is true, even though I would not be able to repeat it cognitively, but there was such a deep landing in me, and sometimes it took a few years to kind of also be able to communicate it. But on a deeper level, I knew, yes, what he's sharing is so true. And yeah, it's brilliant. And Mariana, maybe can you just explain us a bit, what is the difference of traditional investment and then integral investment, what you invented? I mean, I don't know if it's a too big topic, but maybe just distill it to the main differences.
Yes, I'd like to share a few slides on that because it all comes down to the way we measure. So seeing a few slides is probably, you know, a word, a picture speaks 1,000 words. So that let me stop my video and go to my slides, and I'll take the screen and share that with you. One moment, please.
Mm-hmm.
So what most people need to understand is, and I'll move the screen so that it doesn't block the, what people need to understand is that traditional, our society split is rather schizophrenic in the way things are evolving. On one hand, we have, hold on. On one hand, there is traditional investing that is tries to maximize the financial returns, drive them high, and they have a profit floor. And then in trying to offset whatever negative outcomes that occur on Wall Street or from driving the profits high at the expense of everything else, we traditional philanthropy is trying to compensate for that. And so in the mid-80s, the investors, they decided that they wanted to invest with their values. And so impact investing was basically brought to life. And if you look at the way impact investing currently occurs, is you either, you have to, amongst the impact investors, they still need to decide whether they want to invest with a financial intention, maximize the financial, whether it's financially viable, or impact first. And in my view, this is schizophrenic. It just continues the old model, the separation between traditional and philanthropy. And particularly, this is interesting to look at because within philanthropic organizations, you know, like Bill Gates and the Gates Foundation, there are, you know, they have a mission through which they want to make a big difference in the world. Yet at the same time, they also have a financial stock that needs to get invested, very often billions in Bill Gates Foundation case, against the mission of the foundation. So the left hand doesn't talk to the right hand, even within the Gates Foundation, just to stick to an example. So this is really very tricky. So the truth is actually integral investing. You need to implement, you know, everything. And I call that implementing the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals within the operating system of our planet. And we have left this area. So that's a big problem. We have left the operating system. We don't care, and we have climate change as a result, and so on. So what integral investing does, it basically tries to integrate the measurement criteria, because you can only achieve what you measure, right? If you don't measure, then you don't know what the outcome is. So traditional investing has, as a measurement criteria, the profit. That's the financial bottom line, right? That's maximize the profit at the expense of everything else. Now we have, on the other hand, impact investing that tries to integrate the people, planet, and profit. But as we've seen, people pick and choose. Oh, it's either, no, the planet is more important. No, the people, social investing is more important. Oh no, financial needs to go first. And the reality is all of it at the same time needs to be, there is no, you always have an impact. It's negative if you don't take a look at the entire picture, and it's positive if you do. So integral investing, based on Ken Wilber's integral model, is helping us doing exactly that. And of course, the way we do it, you have to look at the culture, the we aspect, because the interior drives the exterior. A culture is also based on, of course, of individuals. And so you have to look at the individuals, individual leaders, and then how they all work together. So this is basically, in a very, how should I say, general terms, how we apply that. Now, when you look into how you apply that within the an early stage investment into, let's say somebody sends me a business plan and you know, some startup, then we go through several steps, which the first one is step one, which is the traditional. This is what everybody else does in the traditional sense. You look at the business plan and the marketing plan and the IP. And so you look at the entire picture from like everyone else. But that continues, that step two takes the UN SDGs within planetary boundaries and looks what is the sustainability impact. Step number three, we look at the individuals, and we are only looking for conscious leaders, people like the top 6% of the people, because that's the best way to guarantee that what they say will be delivered just because they can. They have not only the cognitive understanding, but the emotional mastery and the ethics and the morals. Then the same applies for the team. 80% of the risk comes from the team. So you have to see how the team works together. And then we make the decision whether to invest or not. So this is in a nutshell, and this is what we do. These are the steps. This is the secret sauce. And of course, we could go into the details, but let me stop here and we could discuss this further.
Yeah. I just wonder if you have maybe examples of companies you supported and they went through this process with you.
Yes, of course I do.
So to give us an
that's
idea.
where I use a lot of the resources, some of the best people in the world to help me do this. I've worked deeply. One of the most the smartest people, coaches in this world that I just love working with them is Barrett Brown, Dr. Barrett Brown, and yeah, he's brought the tools from that I studied from Stanford, Harvard, and MIT, and we applied them in individual tests. For instance, in one current example, one of the biggest issues that we have right now is to accelerate the digitalization process. We see during this crisis how important it is that we do have the technology at our fingertips and we can use it to have our food delivered, to have stuff delivered while we practice social distancing, to continue our businesses and activities like we do right now using the technology. Now, as you know, even Germany is the third largest how should I say, economic power in the world. If you look at the percentage of the students that actually had access from home to the internet, it's like 30%. Mm-hmm. And so that's actually amazing. How can it be that students cannot do their homework, cannot access the internet, not through a phone, but really do homework and interact with one another? And so the digitalization process needs to be accelerated, not only for, you know, distancing purposes, but also because it helps address the grand global challenges, including climate change. Mm-hmm. So while we accelerate the digitalization process, of course, where does this processing take place? You need data centers. That's where the majority, all the Amazons and the Facebooks and all the big and small companies, you know, they need data centers. And of course, if you look at, so these data centers are mushrooming, you know, more and more are being needed to be built. and particularly as we move to 5G and larger networks and so on, which of course, if you look at the what creates the largest CO2 emission, 30% of this carbon and the greenhouse gas emissions on the planet come from construction. So when you really are an investor like I am, and I want to invest with an impact, like what are the tools and the skills that I can do to really have an influence in this? How can I turn my blah, blah, blah intentions into practice? Now, as more and more data centers are being built, we were looking for a way to reduce the CO2 emission from construction and participate in the digitalization process and avoid building stranded assets for our children. Assets, buildings that are, produce a lot of CO2 emissions and so on. We came across a technology that uses cooling with water instead of air. Most data centers that are the traditional, majority of them are being built, using air as a cooling device and or technology, and that's very inefficient. So when you take water and use it to cool, which of course is a kind of counterintuitive. I mean, you don't add electricity or water to electricity, but technology, when we came across that, we realized that that can have a huge impact. So we then thought, oh my God, let's build data centers that use water instead of air. And the impact of that is that you need 50% less energy because the buildings are shorter. You need 50% less construction materials like steel and aluminum and concrete. And so because you don't have to have the air be moved around. And of course, when we invested in this company and so on and started to build a team and so on, we had Barrett come in and do the testing on the people. Are these honest? What is the likelihood that they will succeed? And within this context, I'd like to make it very clear that it's not about us investing into somebody else and taking a superior position and testing people. That's not what this is about. This is about us together co-creating our future and taking responsibility. We go through the same tests. We are evolving together. And once we open up to our investees, to our startup teams and say, well, we are partners in this. We are all co-creating. We're all building this together and evolving together. They love us. They want us to be investors in their company. By the way, I believe that everybody's investor because we all invest our money, our time, our resources, our heart and soul into everything that we do. Then there is an amazing partnership that develops over time that helps us be joyful and happy and integrate what I call the motto, the 6 Ps, the parity, the equality between people, planet, profit, but also the passion and the purpose. Why are we here? At the end of the day, we're not going to take any of that with us. So this is our motto, the 6 Ps. And of course, Ken Wilber and the tools that are available out there to implement the 6 steps help us do that in a way that can be measured, because everything else, if you don't measure, you cannot deliver. And this is where the interior with the exterior get combined, and then we could all see the manifestation of the unmanifest.
Wow, so beautiful. And I just wonder, while I'm sitting with you here, I sense your brilliance in your intellect and setting up all of that. And you mentioned also the support of life, the synchronicity and people you met. And I just wonder, because I sense also a lot of heart in what you are doing. And how did you develop that? Were you just born with already a big heart and compassion and love for people, for the earth? or what supported you in that? Because, you know, university and study often just trains our mind and skills, but not so much the heart. And I just want to, maybe you aren't asked this question so often, but it is so obvious for me. And yeah, I'm curious.
Well, and you have the answer for that because you've gone through this yourself. It's hard work, and it's uh, it's a time in life where things don't go the way you want them to, when we have the greatest opportunity to grow. So, and which means to address our shadows, and we all have them. And there are times where you are open and able to address those shadows, and times where you don't. And if you don't, then you get them again and you face them again. And so in my case, again, I grew up in communist Romania. I knew I was indoctrinated. I was a young communist. I still am in my mind. I'm a philosopher, and Marx was a philosopher. And so I was deeply influenced by that, which meant that I was at the same time spiritually deprived because I grew up as an atheist. And of course, when you have a brain, then it's very hard to believe that there is an old man in the sky holding a finger up and then sentencing you to hell or paradise. So that could not be it. But I didn't have another way to explain myself what was there, which means that I didn't have, I was spiritually deprived. And I recognized that when, for the first time, during my computer science studies, that I didn't have the tools to deal with life's problems and challenges. And so it was in the early 80s, 1980 actually, when I was really stressed at university, and I came down with ulcers, and I went to the doctor, and the doctor gave me some antacids, and just, didn't tell me anything probably because he didn't have any tools himself. And he thought it's going to go over. And I went to library, which I always do when I have questions. At the time, we didn't have Google, and I studied. What is an ulcer? How does it come about? How is it possible that when I take one of those antacids for 10 minutes, I'm fine, and then 30 minutes later, I start again? So what is it? And so I came across a book that talked about autogenous training, autogenes training, we call that in German, and meditation. And that's when I just started. I embarked on a meditation and autogenes training kind of lifestyle, where I realized that there is a mind and there is a body, and that my mind can actually influence the body. And so that was the beginning of my meditative, how should I say, spiritual hygiene, I'd like to call that. We brush our teeth and take a shower every day, a couple of times, and so on. But we don't cultivate spiritual hygiene in our culture, at least in the German. Something that goes beyond the church and the church indoctrination. And so I began studying meditation, and I studied with whoever. I mean, from Deepak Chopra over Ramdas, and all these big teachers. And I studied hundreds of books and various traditions, from TM to Zen to Buddhist meditation in general. And I ended up with Tibetan meditation, and my teacher is Daniel P. Brown, which is, from my perspective, is the most advanced, evolved technique to meditate, because all the others that I studied before, I came to an end. I know that in the meantime that there are a lot of meditation teachers, well-intended people, but there are very few good ones who have advanced to really present the latest, like the fourth wheel that Ken Wilber talks about, and not, end up in at the first or the second wheel, turning of the or evolution of spirituality. So it's been a 40 years road of up and downs, and so meditation helps, and of course meditation, but also psychology work, and being open, and just being humble.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is also a quality I notice in you. And I just wonder, I mean, also for you, the day has 24 hours and you do a lot. What is in integral investment? What is the main part where you take care of in your team, in your company?
It's the de-risking process.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the screening. We look once we decide that it is an interesting technology or an application. Technology it doesn't have to be high tech or exponential tech. It can also be medical devices, or some other. We even invested in a movie with an impact, and because we wanted to support our son, of course, who's a movie producer, and we all know how important it is, to have a simple message that can be understood and applied by all, like The Matrix and others. So I am deeply involved at the screening process, and of course look at the technology, and but mostly at the people in the team and how they work together. And if we find it interesting, then we go deeper. The process is you issue a term sheet, and once the term sheet is being issued, you go into the due diligence process. And so I'm using those skills that I have at that. Once the investment is being done, if we decide to invest because what we found out is good, then we also allocate between 3 and 5% of the investment amount to the team development. So that the companies, keep developing and staying on track. Because once when you do the tests in the beginning, that's just the beginning to see where people are at. But we all need to evolve to the next level, and we need resources. We need people to help us move along, particularly in early stage when you have so much to do. Yeah. And so I work with people until the investment is being exited.
Mm-hmm. So is it then really only with startups, or do also people approach you which like to really transform their already existing company into an integral, motivated and inspired company?
They do, but in that case, and actually even in the early stages, I work with Jan Bellaman, for instance, another local resource. He's a coach, an integral coach that I work with, and I bring into our investments because I don't have the time to go that deep and work that long with the team. So I'm bringing in other people who know how to deal with larger organizations and have the expertise in there. That's nothing that I'm not very much interested in this. Mm-hmm. Currently, what I find extremely important, and that's where I'm working with the European Commission and the Club of Rome and others, is particularly after the COVID-19 crisis, where we have an economy that is basically inflationary, meaning that we're kind of printing money. We need to accelerate growth because otherwise everything will fall apart, and hope that our children will pay for them. We just need to make sure that the quantitative easing, the printing of money that we're currently are doing, is being used to really get it down to where it is needed, where the jobs are being created, and 55% of the GDP of all countries, all nations around the world comes from small and medium enterprises. So this is one of a pet project of mine, where I use this de-risking model based on Ken Wilber's integral theory combined with human-based artificial intelligence to really decide quickly, to de-risk the investment, so decide quickly to get the money from where it is being printed to where it is needed. So this is a very important aspect of my current work right now, something that needs to occur sooner and faster than in previous years. As we know, after the 2008 financial crisis, we didn't do such a good job at making that happen. So this time around, we need to support a shift in systems change. So that's my pet project. But I still use this within the early stage and small and medium enterprises context.
Mm-hmm. And what would you, when you would envision the world and more people and companies would really develop to that stage and would use this integral investment, what would you see? What could we create? How could the world look like?
I would need a glass bowl and look like a witch and some witch's expertise to respond to that question. I just hope very much that we were able to create the world that we all need. And within this context, I'd like to share a few slides that show where science is guiding us. And I'm a scientist, I'm an academician, and I believe that we should listen to what scientists tell us. So when it comes to future visions, I would really love to share those slides because they come from the Stockholm Resilience Center, and it comes from a report that was made to the Club of Rome by Johan Rockström, who's currently the director of the Potsdam Institute, and Professor Randers, who's one of the original authors of Limits to Growth. Because I would encourage everybody to really follow the advice, because we only have 10 years to have an impact on transforming existing systems. And so we all need to pull the same strings along the same lines. Otherwise, our very existence is a threat. I'm a very positive person. I believe that we can make it, but I also, and this is why I believe that your contribution is extremely important. The word needs to get out so that people know what are the priorities for the next 10 years.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So is it okay if I share my screen again?
Please,
thank you.
Please, I'm curious. Yeah. Yeah, and I totally agree to what you said. I mean, it's an urgent situation in a way, and I don't really know where it's coming from, but I'm very optimistic. And I mean, all my life is dedicated to support this transition. And as you said, everything what brings the message out and reaches as many people as possible in different areas of life is absolutely welcome and needed. Yeah.
Yeah. And so let me see.
So
let me share again. So it is a fact of life that global warming continues, and particularly within the context of COVID-19, very few people are actually talking about it. They want to go to business as usual. But Mother Earth doesn't listen to that. So we keep warming, and we see all the storms and stuff that is currently, particularly that we faced yesterday in Germany, the day before yesterday. So the Earth is actually warming much faster than expected. And this is not what I say, this is what IPCC says, the collection of some of the brightest scientists on the world. So when it comes to investing, for instance, or doing something, people keep talking about the Sustainable Development Goals, and let's implement those. And if you go to conferences, then you are invited at the registration desk to pick and choose one favorite Sustainable Development Goal that you would like to implement. And so many people say, oh, I want to address poverty. And they do everything they can, just like China did. And Ethiopia and South Korea did over the past decades, you know, to help lift people out of poverty. Well, if you do that and it's not in an unsustainable way, you basically arrive at where we are today, basically going against the number 13, that is climate action. So everything, you know, goes toward consumption and producing more for people, making, you know, lifting people out of poverty at the expense of the climate. So scientists, and this is the report that I mentioned before from the Stockholm Resilience Center, show how can we actually, what would be the best way to implement the UN SDGs within the operating system of the planet. So, because if you look at the 9 planetary boundaries, and there are 9, and you can see it's climate change is 1, it's biochemical flows, ocean acidification, freshwater use, and so on. There are 9 major factors which are called planetary boundaries that really influence that Mother Earth can provide for us. So when you look at the center, this is the green center, this is where Mother Earth works at the optimum case, but we have left that center. We are now between yellow and red, red meaning it's not sustainable. So the question is, when we go then to implementing the UN SDGs, we need to implement them within the boundaries of the planet. What does it mean? And here you can see on the y-axis, on the vertical line, you see the 9 planetary boundaries with red at the bottom and green at the top, which is where it should be. And at the horizontal line, you see between 6 and 14 sustainable development goals, which we all want to, the more the merrier, the better for all of us, of course, right? So we want here to be also on the right, on the green. But if you look what we have done since 1980, you know, through all the efforts in trying to lift people out of poverty, the world population increased, we have left the safe operating system, the green area, and by 2015, we had achieved 9 at the, you know, on the x-axis, 9 UN SDGs, but we live now in a non-sustainable environment. And if we continue the business as usual, which is what they all tell us, oh, Trump says, oh, we need to go back to this from the EU Commission. We don't have time. We really need to focus on, you know, creating this and that and the other. Sustainability is not important. Planetary boundaries are not important. We need to go and, you know, have the same business as usual. Then we will end up in 2050. This is what scientists tell us. They develop those models, several scenarios based on data collected over the past decades. And they predict that by 2050, we will end up with between 11 and 12 implemented UN Sustainable Development Goals, but we will be on a planet that cannot sustain life. And so what happens if we accelerate the faster growth, which is basically what we're doing right now? You know, we just pump more money, do the same thing to accelerate the thing. The same thing, the result is the same thing, a little bit more, but we will not leave the unsafe environment of the planet. And the same thing occurs if we try even harder and increase on various fronts. But there is a smart way. And this is what I would like to encourage. If you ask me where I see the future going, this is where I really, this is where I put all my money and efforts and everything I am to help people implement what is called the smart way. And there are 5 immediate actions that work. And this is what determines the priorities of everything that we do. Number 1, we need to accelerate renewable energy development and growth by halving emissions every decade from 2030. So we have now 10 years during which we can set ourselves up on Earth to be able to halve the emissions, the CO2 emissions and green gases every decade, starting with 2030. So we have now the time where we can do this. Number two, we need to feed the ever-growing population of the earth. So this is the second very important priority. And we, by doing that, by increasing with 1% per annum in better productivity, but a sustainable productivity. Number three action item is, what is it that we could copy from China, from South Korea, from Ethiopia, all these wonderful countries that have succeeded to really lift people out of poverty? What can we copy that worked and make that sustainable in a climate understanding? So learn from them and make that available to developing countries also that are coming, and they need to feed their people. They're growing. I mean, go to Africa, go to Nigeria, and all these up and coming countries, the Pacific Rim and so on. And number four is ensure that 10% of the richest don't own more than 40% of the income. So we need to address inequality, which is, it's amazing. I mean, if you look at our system right now, even in Germany, a country that is social, blah, 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 the inequality is skyrocketed. And COVID makes that even more visible. So we're not doing a good job at that. So we need to address that inequality. And then, of course, number five, which is my favorite, is investment in education. And most of all, gender equality in family planning and health. Why? Because the difference between an educated woman of 12 years of education and an uneducated woman is 4.5 children. That's the footprint, 4.5 children. So if you're asking me what can be done, this is this is the future that I envisioned.
Wow.
And I hope that that makes...
Actually, I didn't expect such a detailed, lovely, practical answer where we all can really also pick a piece where I'm more called to, how can I implement that in my life, for myself, for my family, for my company, whatever. So, I'm so glad that I asked you this question. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Mariana. I mean, we are at the end of our conversation, and I really enjoyed what you brought. It was such a beautiful sharing from you as a person, from your skills that you collected, and the impact you have, and the beautiful images and slides. And I feel really enriched. It's really landing in me. I resonate a lot with it. I hope that all the people who are now also still with us in the conversation, you also take something away out of this conversation. Maybe feel really inspired. I see doing this. Let's go to action, and let's really implement what is landing in you, and where you resonate, where your heart just has a yes and a knowing that this is your direction to contribute. And I guess we are so different, and different solutions are needed, so there is space for everyone to contribute. And Mariana, I just want to give you the last word, what you want to share with people in the audience for this summit.
Just keep an open heart, and remember that we're here to give the best in what we have and who we are. We are gifted with being alive today, and with that comes great responsibility in a good sense. And that responsibility doesn't have to be fulfilled in a big way. Giving a smile to somebody, a piece of advice when it's needed, and a knowing look, that's more than sufficient to make a difference in somebody else's life. It doesn't have to be in form of money or anything. Just open your heart and try to connect with with yourself at every moment in time, because we never know when we go, and whatever counts is what we do here and now. So thank you very much for having me. It's been an honor and a privilege.
Same. Thank you so much, Mariana. Thank you so much for everyone joining us and contributing to creating a coherence and resonance in this aspect where we really care of our evolution. And Mariana, you said it so beautifully. I just leave it like that. And see you in the next conversation. Bye.
Thank you.